Hello and welcome to today's visit on the Spirit of Fire blog tour. Today we visit a Daydreamer's thoughts, and thank you, Faye, for having me visit with you today, and thank you to your audience for viewing the video here, and definitely looking forward to addressing some questions that you provided me, and I hope I give you some good answers. It'll give you a little feel for what I do and the series that I write. The first question that Faye has is, tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you would like your readers to know. Well, I always like my readers to know that I am 150% committed to them, because without readers, an author is nothing. And so for me, at this point in my career, I am extremely focused and dedicated, to the readers. Personally, I'm a very laid back, very approachable and accessible sort of individual, and I do love hearing from readers, and that's one big reason that I do attend a lot of conventions and so forth, is so I can meet readers in person. As far as me, I've had a very interesting path in my life where I've done a lot of different things, working in TV stations to, currently still working a bit in broadcast media, but also I've worked in the music business. I have also worked in cancer research even. So I've done a lot of things in my path, and I've been writing seriously with an eye toward being a published author since about the mid-1990s. And actually that kind of addresses your second question, how long have you wanted to be a writer? I've always wanted to be a storyteller. That goes back to my earliest roots. In the literary kind of area, I got the real boost from my mom reading me The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit aloud at the age of about 7. Before that, my father had actually given me these kind of improv stories every night when I was a really little kid that were fantastical in nature and started me and my family with dinosaurs and things like that. So those roots were definitely kind of what moved me toward wanting to become a writer, and but it wasn't really till about after my college, after about the beginning of my college years, that I finally got the kind of focus where I finally, kind of got on a track toward wanting to become a published author. So when you are not typing away at the keyboard, coming up with new ideas, what do you do? I enjoy a lot of things in music and film. I used to actually play guitar, and I do love music and bands, and I love going to concerts. I love movies. I'm also a filmmaker as well, and so anytime I get to be around that kind of environment, I really enjoy it a great deal. I love just hanging around with friends, doing simple things and experiential kind of things. Anything from going visiting a horse farm to going to a gun range to try out a gun, to see what that feels like for the next urban fantasy book, and that kind of thing. So I love to do just try out different things. I love travel, especially. I like to go visit other countries and other other states in America and so forth, and I love to glean all that kind of richness of different cultures, and I think that's had a lot to do with the kind of books that I write. So more specifically, geared towards me and my novel, Spirit of Fire. Now we know more about you, and what about your novels? What's the Fires in Eden series all about? The Fires in Eden series actually is almost like my personal fantasy growing up. It's kind of like the what if you suddenly found yourself in a mist, and when the mist cleared, you found yourself in a fantastical realm. It's kind of like going through the wardrobe in Narnia. What about if a modern day character got taken into a medieval fantastical world? And that's kind of what this series kind of generated from, is that kind of almost like a personal fantasy of mine. And I have an ensemble cast that goes back in the Fires in Eden series to a world called Ave, and they get in two lands that are on the brink of being invaded by the same enemy called the Unifier, who actually has the allegiance of a lot of different lands and cultures that have kind of flocked to his vision of kind of like an age of peace is what he's proclaiming. But those that don't want to bend their knee to him are being attacked, and he kind of brands it as the war to end all wars. And so a land that's based on the Iroquois from the Five Nations period, and another land that's kind of based on the Anglo-Saxons, are the two lands where these modern day characters end up. And the story kind of flows from that as to what's going on, why are the modern day characters taken back into this world what's their part to play within this ensemble. So so that's kind of what the Fires in Eden series is about. It's very much character driven. It's very epic in scale. It goes across a lot of diverse lands. Obviously, very richly developed world, and I think you're going to get a real tour de force of different cultures and types of things and creatures, and it's got everything that I think fantasy readers just love, and lots of it. So so I think that's what it's got. The series is urban fantasy is a genre that you find easy to write. Sometimes, yeah, my two series do get confused. This is actually interesting you mention that, because it does have modern day characters that get taken back into this world, but this is definitely probably classified as a straight up epic fantasy. My other series is an epic scale urban fantasy, and that's called the Rising Dawn Saga. And it's the genre I love, any form of fantasy. So I mean, that's why I find it, very attuned to my writing, just because I love it. And so, yeah, any kind of like urban fantasy, steampunk, anything kind of along those lines is something that really resonates with me, and I don't find it, hard to get into as a writer. So, so which book in the series would you say is your favorite? That's a tough one to say, because they each have a very special point or special place within the context of the series itself. There's a major, powerful scene that Spirit of Fire concludes on, which I really love, and but at the same time, Dream of Legends, has a major revelation in it that absolutely, I love. And Crown of Vengeance, though, is near and dear to me because it's the first, and it has some stuff that's very much close to home. Some of the early scenes with Janice are very, very specific to me. So so it's hard for me to say which book is my favorite. I guess the first one that gets you off the ground is always going to have a little bit of extra special place in your heart. So maybe Crown of Vengeance gets a slight nod, but really, I mean, they're all pretty equivalent. Going back to Spirit of Fire, did you know all the events would lead to this book? Oh, absolutely, because I do outline, and as far as like not so extensively that I box myself in, but I definitely know where the series is going. I know what I want to accomplish with each book in terms of the general core of each book, and I do have specific goals for each title. So so I did know the events for sure that are leading into this book, not only in terms of where it fits with what came before, but also where it fits in leading to the things that come afterwards. So yes, I did know the events. We've all been struck from time to time with it from time to time. How do you deal with writer's block? For me, writer's block has not been a big problem. I write a multi-threaded character style, not too dissimilar from how George R.R. Martin does his, where he has different, almost like chapter headings with each different character. And doing it that way, I kind of go with the flow. I go with whatever thread's the hot thread at the moment, and kind of really work with that. And I've, luckily, knock on wood, I've been able to avoid major issues of any kinds of running into a brick wall or writer's block sort of issues. And I think it has to do with the kind of style that I write in. This isn't your only series, so I'm assuming you're somewhat of an expert now. Is it easier writing the second and third books in a series, or is it harder than the first? I think they all have their own challenges, and I cut my teeth on a few books that have not been published and are kind of like gathering dust, the manuscripts, when I was in my early college years, and those were the kind of the ones where I really found that I could complete a novel. And those were probably the hardest for me to get through, because those are the first times I did them. But once I realized that I could complete a novel, I mean, it has not been any, I wouldn't say harder or easier with each successive novel that I've done. So I mean, at this point, I'm on a pretty good rhythm, and for me, it's fun. So I don't find them hard, and I could, like I always say, I could spend 100 hours writing, and it doesn't bother me like doing 20 hours doing something I hate would feel like. So I so I don't think they're necessarily going to get any easier, but I don't think they're going anything's getting any harder either. I think I'm just on a pretty good rhythm at this point. Do your characters continue to develop throughout the books? Definitely. Each character does have arcs. Can't get into too much about without danger of spoilers about what those arcs are. But certainly they aren't static, and the things that they go through and the ways that they respond to them definitely take them through a range of character development. What could you say about the Fires in Eden series that makes it a unique must-read in your biased opinion? Yes. I'd say that Ave is just a very richly developed world, and you get to visit a wide spectrum of lands and types of characters and within different cultures. And I think it's very rich in that regard. It's very extensive and very layered fantasy. Pretty much you could take it any way you want to. You could read it as just entertainment. You can peel away layers and find things even deeper into what I've written. So you can read it on multiple levels. I think that's fun. I think it also has a balance between the iconic and the original. I've got original races like the Trogans and the Ungahor, the Duroks, the Flying Steeds, that come into Crown of Vengeance and things like that. Those are the Skiantha. And I think that having those things alongside more familiar things like a Viking-based culture, and then we do have wizards and dragons and things like that. I think having that kind of balance, I think, makes for a really solid series that gives you a zone of comfort and a zone of things that are fresh and original. And I definitely can say that it's not a clone of anything that's out there. It's definitely a unique series. So I think people they're looking for something new. Will find something to their liking with the Fires in Eden series. And finally, do you have any advice for aspiring writers out there? Two things. Read a lot and don't get caught up in word counts. I always say this. Everybody says, you have to get X number of words written a day. No, the key is writing on a regular basis. It's much more important instead writing 10,000 words in one day as opposed to writing 1,000 words on 10 straight days. I think the latter is actually a better path to take. I think writing on a regular basis is what's going to help you become a better writer, not necessarily how much you get done in one individual session. And read outside your genre, read different types of authors, and I think that all that's helpful for writers. And then third, develop a thick skin. Very tough road. The bullseye's on you at all times. You're always being evaluated. Just be ready. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people to do, but just but be ready and have a thick skin as you go into it. And quick fire round. We've got, all right, some questions. Ebooks or hard copies? I'd say hard copies. There's no feeling like holding your book in your hands. The tangibility is just something that cannot be replaced. Especially with that when I have one of my hardbacks. Some of the limited edition hardcovers that we have in my books. There's no feeling. It's like, sometimes I'll have the ebook before I have the hardcover, and there's simply no comparison between how it feels to have both of them. So I'd have to, even though I like ebooks and I know their place and I know that they're going to be the dominant thing in the publishing world, still hard copies. There's just no difference. Day or night? Night. I'm nocturnal, so I do like the night. Reading or writing? Writing. I do enjoy reading a lot, but when I'm writing, I always find myself at my most peaceful inside. That's when I'm happiest. It's when I'm having my most fun. So writing is what I would opt for there. Paper or computer? Computer simply because paper you could not read my handwriting. So computers are definitely the thing that allows me to do what I do, because I couldn't even translate what I write with myself. So as far as if I jotted it down on paper, so the vote is for computer. Tea or coffee? Tea. And I know Jackie Gamber, my fellow SSP author, would be very proud of me for that answer. But I like some coffee, but I've never really been much of a coffee drinker. I've always preferred tea, and I love British teas. Those are great. Favorite book of the moment? I just finished A Dance with Dragons not too long ago, so I'm on that. As far as small press, a book called Blood Sword by Terry Irvin, who has a great series. It stands at 2 right now. The first book, Flank Hawk. I think that was one of my highlights in recent times, and then A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. Most memorable book. It will have to be Lord of the Rings, because that's what set me on this path. So Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King, kind of being considered as one, would have to be my most memorable book. So So that, I think that addresses the questions, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for having me. Great to be at a Daydreamer's Thoughts, and thank you, Faye. And if you need to find anything more about me, look me up at www.stephenzimmer.com, and it's Stephen with a PH and Zimmer. And if you're looking for, some really rich, layered ensemble cast, kind of epic fantasy and urban fantasy, I've got Fires in Eden or the Rising Dawn Saga for you, and so I'll keep at it. If you read my work, I will give you my utmost effort to bring you more and more and more in the future. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.